welcome to the Power Platform Show. Full show notes for this episode can be found at nz365guy.com/254. Before we chat with today's guest, here's a quick message from our sponsors. Today's show is brought to you by ISV Connected. Are you thinking about creating some IP, not sure where you should start? You should join the only community dedicated to ISV success. That's isvconnected.com. Why, you ask? Because navigating the Microsoft ISV landscape is easier with friends. Sign up today at isvconnected.com. Today's guest is from Burnaby, British Columbia, Canada. He's a general manager of Reliable Electric Limited. He has been featured in Microsoft case studies about his company's use of the Power Platform. He has no prior app development experience and taught himself Power Apps and Power Automate in SQL. You can find him on Twitter at Lars_P. But just a side note, he hasn't tweeted since, 2011. Welcome to the show, Lars Peterson.
Thank you. I'm surprised you were able to dig up that Twitter account, actually. More likely to find me on LinkedIn. That's maybe a little bit more active, but you're right. Not very active on anything online there.
Well, what I did notice is that there's a little baby boy in the photo there on Twitter. It's a very young version of you, I think.
Yeah, that must be. Yeah.
in the profile photo.
Oh, I got to check that out. I definitely going to have to look that one up.
It looks like you're still at high school or so, or college or something like that.
Oh, yeah, I probably posted it like 5 years after, and I'm like, yeah, still young.
Yeah, nice. So before we get underway, tell us about what you do when you're not working. So what does family, food, and fun mean for you when you're not working?
Yeah, so I actually code on my spare time too, which is interesting. So I'm trying to develop my own application. So that's cool. Nerdy side of things. And I'm continually learning and going to school. So I'm currently taking courses actually in Angular, weird enough, and have been doing a bunch in JavaScript and whatnot. So, and then I love the outdoors, so I go backpacking whenever I can, and I did a nice week-long canoe trip this summer, which I really enjoyed, and I did it's a year and a half ago now that did a 90-kilometer cross-country ski race with my dad in Sweden there, so that was a highlight. That was a long, long day. Wow. So have you got Swedish heritage? Norwegian. So
wow.
Yeah, I've been
very
there a few
cool.
times.
Yeah, same. Amazing country, eh?
It is. It really is. Expensive, though, but really amazing. Beautiful.
So 90 kilometers or 90 miles, that cross country?
And 90 kilometers. It used to be the longest one in the world, but I hear there's one that's longer now, but it's one of the oldest ones in the world, too. I think it's been going since 1920 or so, but don't quote me on that.
Is it like all downhill, or is it more horizontal, or is it up and down?
It is up and down. It is, I think it's net down, but for the most part, you're going horizontally. So, and that's kind of what cross-country skiing is. It's a really good workout, and you just enjoy the nature. It's great.
Yeah, I bet. So, man, it definitely, is it similar to swimming in that you're using all your arms and legs as well?
Yeah, it's funny. One thing gets, especially when you're going that far, one thing gets tired and then you start squeezing your abs a little bit more, pushing more into your legs or putting more in your back. So it's nice in that sense that you can keep on swishing the muscles up, and it's not like running where you just have your legs and eventually they just take a walloping,
Yeah. So what about family and food? Well, you talked about that was with your dad, right? The cross-country skiing?
Yeah. So I not married yet, got a long-term girlfriend that we live together actually in North Vancouver now, which is where the office is. It's a beautiful place in BC. And so she loves all the same things I do, which is great. So we do a lot of outdoors stuff. We're trying to get out there every day, even with COVID and working from home is a little weird, but making it work. You
got a few friends in Vancouver. I was there last year and for a wedding, which was fantastic. And man, it's just a beautiful part of the world, Vancouver.
Yeah, I need to get down to New Zealand. I hear New Zealand is equally or more beautiful, so.
I don't know. Some of those lakes that you have, the turquoise color, it does remind us actually of some of the rivers that we have in the lower part of our country, which are a very different type of blue color in the way they reflect light and whatnot. It's quite incredible.
Yeah, it is a beauty to behold, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a bit about the company that you work for, that you took on this journey into the Power Platform with Microsoft.
Yeah, so we're Reliable Electric. I think we're about 45 people right now. We've been in, actually, Kevin, the owner, he founded Reliable, I think it's 26 or 27 years ago now. So been in business a long time. I joined on 4 years ago. And the focus at Reliable is we wire really, really high-end homes is about 50% of our work. And then custom commercial electrical wiring is the other kind of 50%. And in there, we do some automation work and some lighting control and blinds and other electrical devices.
So when you say ultra high end, and what's the difference between that and, high end and then middle of the market type from an electrical perspective?
Well, we would say it's more challenging, and I definitely think it is.
Oh, okay.
I think that every little, you pack more devices into smaller areas and you have more very high-end finishes and a high expectation on the result and how everything's going to work. So, we hammer home quality it to an extreme extent where, we make sure every screw is aligned the right way on an outlet and whatnot. And so, yeah.
And so how big is home automation, coming into that space, whether it be plugged into Google Home or Alexa, Echoes and things like that? Is that becoming a big predominant part of the electrical industry nowadays in Canada?
Well, it's strange for an electrical contractor to be doing any of the automations controls. Actually, mostly they're standalone companies that do audiovisual and security and then the automation side. And there's big money in that. It's sometimes the contracts are much bigger than even wiring a whole home with all the devices in it. So yeah, it's definitely a major part of, especially in the high end homes. And I see it switching more over to the Google Homes and the Alexas, and that should actually lower the overall cost of it, which is exciting. And we're trying to figure out where we fit in that all, but we're really happy with how we're doing right now. So
yeah, because I'd find it interesting. Why I'm very interested in this topic is that I'm wiring my new home at the moment, and my brother-in-law's an electrician, and so I can change my mind 100 times and he kind of goes with it and lets me have what I want. But, why I thought that it would be more in your space is that, wall outlets and everything, I'm now looking, okay, can I have all my wall outlets Wi-Fi enabled? So that means they're not just PowerPoints anymore. They're PowerPoints that are, connected to the Wi-Fi, because then that allows me to add the automation later rather than, I don't know, do you have the brand Clipsal as a well-known one here?
No, I've actually never heard of it.
So it's like a home automation system that's been around, I don't know, since the 90s maybe, but it's kind of like everything's very proprietary, and most people these days, the people that I'm associated with are looking for home automation that's not tied into a single technology, that because we know it's growing so rapidly.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. And there are actually, I've been reading up, I'm very interested as well, by the way, on Google Home and Alexa and how it could actually change things. And they're opening things up to allow developers more easily to connect to them, and it'll create a better, more open ecosystem where you can just choose, plug and play the different components, which is exciting.
Yeah, but of course the race is on for everybody to own that little bit of the proprietary world where their home hubs and whatnot, right? I suppose track user behavior would be an interesting one to lead to further products, but also to get them tied into, whether it's the Philips Hue system or the Samsung or any of the other kind of core technologies. But yeah, I definitely like the more open, the more I can just bring bits from all over the place together.
Yeah, I get made fun of a little bit here, but I have Philips Hue in my home, but we mostly do like high-end Lutron homework systems that are much, much, much more robust. So you'd never be asking twice to turn that one on. It would just turn on. Like there's just an expectation there,
Yeah. So true. Wow, interesting. So how did you get on Microsoft's radar? They did this case study on you. How did you get on their radar, and what's been your journey from a Power Platform perspective?
Yeah, interesting. I don't know how I actually got on their radar. It's probably because I was reaching out trying to get help on something, and then somehow it just evolved into that. So I'm so far out of the community. I'm probably a different one for you to be podcasting. But so I stumbled upon it when I started trying to find a way to create a database back system at Reliable. And I knew that was always the way to do it. Like, we wanted a centralized system. We didn't want a whole bunch of different Excel sheets everywhere like we had. And like when I was a small business consultant, that was actually the majority of what we implemented in places. And access just didn't quite cut it. Everything's moving to the cloud. So I first started looking at Access web apps, and thankfully within about a month and a half, Power Apps was announced and came out, and then I started fooling around with it. And so I was right at the start, and I loved it. It was like just a new platform that we could build things so easily in the cloud the way that it should be. And it's funny, if I loved it back then, it's so much better now. There were so many little things that were wrong at the beginning, as you'd expect. So
Yeah. So did you come in as like a contract consultant to Reliable Electrical? Because what's your current title there?
Yeah, I'm the general manager. And I started that 4 years ago, but my relationship with Reliable started when I was a small business implementation consultant. So if you go back even further, I have a business degree in finance from university here, UBC, and then that led me to small business consulting, which that's like my second degree. I probably learned more in the time small business consulting in less time than I did in my degree. And I met Reliable through that. They were going through a tough time. They were probably close, a couple of months away from insolvency. So we figured that out. First, get cash in hand. Let's figure out how to move forward and to stop bleeding. The profits was the next one. Get back to profitability. And I stayed on and coached here and there for about a year. And then eventually I left my role. And about 3 months later, I was doing strategic planning here, and they got me on as the GM and never looked back. It's a great company. I've had a lot of fun.
Wow. Okay. So, fill more knowledge gaps for me here. The electrical installer industry, they're a case of you get customers, you have wholesalers that I assume supply products, and then you have crews that go out and run cables, connect to the main power grid, etc. When you said you came across this business, which obviously been running some time, was it because they had a lot of debtors or creditors to them? What was the scenario that got you involved that then led you to going, you know what, we can create a whole bunch of efficiencies here with technology?
Yeah, so it was actually a change that Reliable had made, and a choice was to grow and start attacking quoted work. And they went from about 20 to 35 employees. And even that, to get from that 10 to 20 employees is a big hurdle, and then 20 to 35 is another big one. But they didn't have the, metrics in place to be able to know that they were actually losing money, and until cash flow got extremely tight. And so that's when they realized they needed some outside help, someone to basically look in and try and figure out how to right the ship. And so that's how I got involved. And my old company, Bellrock, was called in, and I was the consultant on the job. So.
Wow. Okay. So tell me about then, what were the problems that you're trying to solve that headed you down the path of the Power Platform?
Wow. So I didn't actually touch the Power Platform until I was general manager at Reliable. But it was the wealth of experience from coaching multiple small businesses and building simple solutions, even in Excel, and seeing the impact there. But just knowing that centralized data source and working in the cloud can create just so much more insights and efficiencies in a business. And I was always looking out for something, and it just didn't really exist yet. Now I think there is probably another few options out there that are good, but I'm so involved in Power Apps that why would I look elsewhere? I'm a little bit of the Microsoft fanboy now.
So, but explicitly, what was your first Power App, for example, that you built, and what was the problem you were solving with it?
Yeah, I think probably the first one was a sales tracker. So it was basically, we used to have this massive spreadsheet that about 5 different people went in. It was a shared spreadsheet. And what would happen is, we'd paste in all this information from all these different sources to be this one source of truth. And then one person would come in and write all over it because, well, it's Excel. It's not built for that. And so it was to get rid of that spreadsheet first, put that in a cloud, and that creates the entrance for the projects then. And so the problem that I was really trying to solve is, let's build up a centralized database. And so I started with the common data service as the back end. And
wow, that's very forward of you. As in, not, many people start with SharePoint, in this environment, but you went straight to CDS. That's awesome.
Yeah, honestly, I had implemented SharePoint, and we still use SharePoint for all our file sharing and whatnot. And I fool around with lists. I have one Power App that's connected to one list, but it didn't seem as great as Power Apps did.
Yeah. So what did that grow into? How many apps are you running now, and what are their different discrete roles that you're performing beyond, tracking sales and your opportunity pipelines?
Yeah, so that's the first one. Probably the second one I built, it actually only took a day and is still being used probably almost more than every other app, is the employee directory, which is just an easy way to submit vacations, easy way to give, props to your colleagues and to, and give feedback within that. And then I went from that, and then the big app came, which was the estimating app. And so this is the one that I probably spent the most time on and had the most impact. And that was to basically, what it boils down to is you're estimating out all the materials that a project could need, and you're trying to do that as efficiently as possible. And so, I did that so that it can flow through the business, and then we can change order based on that and use the material output in order to do material purchasing. So that was the big app. And since then, we also have a tool tracker now. So all our tools go in, and it's got a barcode scanner and stuff. All our tools have barcodes, which is neat. And funny part is I was just in Power Apps today, just spent maybe under 30 minutes to be like, what happens if we switched our invoicing through Power Apps? So that's the next one that I'm kind of got my eyes on. And I also have one that in the background that's for material purchasing. So
wow. Okay. So are you plugging into like your wholesalers, like to get, let's say a drum of cable? I don't know if it varies much through different wholesalers, but do you have multiple accounts that you're also plugging in via APIs when you do that kind of shopping list of materials for the job output, or are you more just producing a physical document that you take to those wholesalers?
I'm only one man, Mark. So I really want to. I actually have the APIs. I know how to link into them. What I have done is I've made it so that it's an export button from their website, and it's an import in through our database, which I've actually switched over to an Azure SQL database now.
And of course, the tail end of that, I suppose, is reconciling those purchases with what gets billed to the customer. Is that where you're thinking with your invoicing system, merging the two?
Yeah, so we actually have a way that all the bills and time entries flow through. That's actually synced via an API through our timesheet software that links directly to our SQL. And so that's where I'm like, oh, and I just did that. So now I can start pulling that through for invoicing. But as for the last big piece of data, my last big conquering that I would love to conquer within the next 6 months is that line item material purchases that we just don't have in our business right now. I can't tell you, like we estimate it out down to the product level. And then when we go and purchase it, we just throw it all in one line. And I really want to solve it. But, as a general manager, I have to always be focusing on what the next bottleneck is. And unfortunately, that's not quite yet the next bottleneck. And I don't have anyone else proficient in Power Apps. But and it's been a hard role to fill. If you look for someone really proficient in Power Apps, it's hard to find. So
interesting you say that. One of the Microsoft guys in the community, Ben Vollmer, recently posted on LinkedIn the number of Power App job openings that are available around the world, and it is a phenomenal number. People looking for Power App specialty.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I could only see that growing. It is to be able to pump out an app within a month and have it making a huge impact in the business. It's exciting.
Yeah. What's the feedback and the adoption rate of staff to probably your first app or apps that they're starting to use? How computer literate are your staff, and how did they adopt, these changes you're making using technology?
Yeah, so not very computer literate is the answer to the first question. We're a trades company. So we have, only 2 people with formal degrees in the whole company. So everyone else has red seals, and we got a lot of intelligent electricians, but none with the training background for computers. So the adoption rate for our estimating software, our estimators use it every day. They're probably in it, 50% of their day they're using it in some way, shape, or form. Our project managers are probably in that 10% of the time. And then, if every employee is in a Power App in some way, shape, or form, whether it's checking out a tool or whether it's using the employee directory, they've at least got some exposure to it, which allows me to, if I do want to implement something, that I have that, and we make sure that everyone has a smartphone capable to do that. So
yeah, so is that the main form factor that staff are using, smartphones?
All our foremen and above will have a computer, so they actually, for the estimating software, it is all in basically the tablet layout for Power Apps. And material purchasing is currently done that way too, but my plan is to build a phone app for that. But so I'd say 50-50, the sales tracker and the estimating software is on tablet form.
Wow. Okay. So Have you shared this at all with industry peers, and have you had other I could imagine other electrical companies in your circle of influence would be showing a bit of interest in this, or is it kind of like you see it as your secret sauce to getting a win over the competition? How much are you sharing or exposing what you're doing to other people in the industry?
It's funny, I never think it's ready. And so, but I have been asked a few times to, whether it can be purchased off us or anything, but I haven't got to that level yet. And there's something that I need to do to take a step back and simplify it a little bit. And that should be a next step, but it works really well now. I'm very, very happy with it. It's fast. Once you know it, and but just like any other electrical estimating software out there, it's got a learning curve in it. I put videos embedded in there everywhere to train people. So it works and people can pick it up, but there's still a couple things I can do to make it a little easier.
Yeah. Because I would think there would be a market, right? Not just in Canada, but also around the world that would use something like this.
Yeah, and there's actually other good applications out there. And, when I first started down this path, I analyzed, I think it was 15 different estimating softwares. And I didn't, just none. We had to copy and paste out to Excel. Some of them wouldn't give the data that we wanted. Like, how are we supposed to, we're trying to the estimating is about setting expectations. And if you can't take the expectations and then put them through project management, you have a big problem. Or if it's really convolutive and it was annoying. So we almost bought one. We spent 3 months on it. I was sure it was going to be the one, and then it just didn't work. And I'm like, I'm building it. But now I've actually seen there's some really good software cloud-based that's out there now that makes me a little bit jealous. So I've been playing around with that. So we'll see. We'll see what the future is. It's expensive, but it might be worth it. And
see where it goes. So at the moment, using Power Apps, are you using Power Automate or any of the other tools on the Power platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have probably 50, maybe 40 flows or Power Automates, I guess. So, and some I built into actually Azure Functions. I probably got about 10 Azure Functions running now. Most of the Power Automates, a lot of them are for reporting anyways. So they're grab information from the SQL database and send it out for like daily hours. So we always have oversight on everything. I have a big fan of giving oversight, but not approval processes. I think people should be able to intervene if they need to, but not be the block of the process. So a lot of those processes, I think the only approval process is actually vacations. So I'm happy with that. And then I think I've tried Power BI and I had one report up and running, but I found, linking to Excel just a little bit easier and everyone's familiar with it. So that's the one thing I do use Excel for, is depicting information.
Okay, so all your reporting side you're still doing in like pivot tables and things like that in Excel?
Yeah, I actually don't use pivot tables too much, but what I do is that, I pull the raw data and it's linked to SQL, and then I depict it however I like in Excel, and that seems to work well.
So what's your use case for SQL? When you've got CDS in play, what do you do in SQL that you can't do in CDS?
So that's the interesting thing, is I abandoned CDS about 3 months in. Our initial estimating software was called ED. I called it the estimating database. And then so I switched over to SQL and I said, ED the SQL. So that happened about 6 months in, because I was frustrated with some of the stuff that CDS didn't do that now does. So, hindsight.
Can you give any examples?
I can't actually remember all of them, to be honest with you. It's so long ago, but I'm pretty sure. I think relationships were a pain. I think that I know they didn't do triggers, but I don't even think Power Apps still supports triggers. I'm not sure about that. I couldn't link any of my tables that had triggers. So
okay, interesting. Because I've definitely done a lot of work on the other side where I remember one I did for the Australian Defence Force when I was working over in Australia, where we took SQL databases particularly and moved them over to what we'd call CDS nowadays, just because it gave a lot more robust control down to a field level of, who could do what and change what, and from a system level as opposed to a user level as well. So
I'd be tempted.
Yeah, not heard it going the other way, from CDS to SQL.
It was very early on. So it was very early on, the CDS days. So, I think it was probably 2 months after I switched over that it's like, okay, well now it has a lot of the features that I want, which I wish I could remember right now. But
yeah. No, makes sense. What's your future plans? As in, where do you see you taking, the tools of the Power Platform? Do you see them? Have you got more kind of backlog of work that you want to migrate over, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like I said, I think the the final frontier basically is getting those material orders through our system. And then I feel confident that all the data that we need is in our database, basically everything that you could possibly want. And so then it's all about lean, and that's basically only doing things the customer values. And so once all the data is getting in, now it's time to really focus on how to make things as efficient and effective as possible. And there's still, like I said, room to improve on the estimating, but not on the actual estimating side, on the scope management side. Once that estimate's handed off, there's some exciting stuff. I think I analyzed that, and I think there's maybe could double the amount of savings that basically the estimating software itself gave. And it's really easy now because we have all that data. So I can't wait to sink my teeth in, and I've been starting to do that this week here a little bit. But there's always something in a small business. There's always something to work on, and if I could spend all my time in there, I probably would.
Yeah. But no, I tell you, I've really appreciated you telling your story, and I just find it a very interesting because each business, has a unique way that they do what they do. And, you've taken the technology and applied it. And obviously the business, well, I assume by what you've said, that it's no longer in the hard spot you found it in all those years ago.
No, thankfully, since I have jumped on board, there hasn't been any negative profits. So it's been good. And even through COVID, it was a tough time, but we're actually grown throughout it. So that's nice.
That's so good. Well, before I let you go, I always like to run a few quickfire questions, which are just random, allows us to peek into you a bit more. Are you ready?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, who are 3 people you want on your team if you went to a zombie apocalypse?
3 people. Well, probably The Rock.
Yeah.
Do you see what he did to his gate?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Wouldn't open, so just ripped it off its hinges.
Yeah. So if you got someone who's really big, you want someone who's really, really intelligent. So I'd probably pick Elon Musk. So yeah. And then, yeah, you probably want someone with empathy, and my girlfriend would kill me for not saying her. So probably my girlfriend Pamela would be the last one. So
I love it. What activity or sport did you try as a kid but you failed at?
Oh, basketball.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I probably played that sport for more hours than any other one, but I was the worst at it. Why did I keep on doing it? Anyway.
Classic. Would you rather experience the beginning of the planet or the end?
Ooh. Depends how. I guess probably beginning.
Interesting. I'd go for the end. See how we all go out.
Yeah, probably more exciting technologies at least, right?
Exactly.
More people to talk to.
And it could be way into the future. If you could instantly be an expert on a subject, what would it be?
Right now, I'd choose programming. That's what I'm focusing on. Yeah.
Nice. What's the first music you ever bought or downloaded or stole? You don't have to say what.
Yeah, no, I got 4 CDs at once, but it was Green Day, Crash Test Dummies,
nice.
And I can't remember the Offspring, maybe.
Yeah, very good, good choices. What's the most surprising realization you've had about yourself? And that's the last one.
Surprising realization about myself. That's tough. I guess the thing that's provided the most value is understanding what drives me and motivates me, and I've narrowed that down to 3 things, which is, being part of a really good team that cares about each other and trusts each other. And it's making a big impact in whatever I'm doing. And it is problem solving every step of the way. So I guess that's the insight that's kind of changed me the most and help my career anyways.
I love it. Lars, it's been great to have you on the show. Is there anybody you'd recommend come on the show in the future, particularly that's been around the Power Apps space that you know of?
Yeah, interesting. And not any that I directly know, but I know that when I first started out, Laura Rogers, basically on the YouTube there, Power Hour, I learned a lot from her, and she seems to be able to break things down really simply. So for a beginner starting out, she'd be an interesting one, but yeah. Awesome. I love it. Thanks again, Lars. Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Business Applications MVP Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 Guy. If there's a guest you'd like to see on the show, please message me on LinkedIn and let me know who I should be interviewing next. Please like and subscribe on your favorite podcast player. If you want to leave a review, go to nz365guy.com/review. It'll list all my current reviews that I've had to date, as well as give you options for leaving your own. See you next time.